I arrived home on a Tuesday afternoon, just as I always did after my shift at the drugstore. My feet ached, but I carried warm, sweet pastries in a bag, Samantha's favorite. I thought we could share them with coffee. I always told her to wash them down with oat milk, it was better for her stomach. Yet, that afternoon, something felt off the moment I turned the key. It didn't budge. I tried again, slower, as if that would change anything. Nothing. I peeked through the window and saw the curtains stir. They were home.
I knocked on the door.
Samantha was the one who answered, but she didn't open it. She just spoke from inside, her voice like someone dismissing a salesman. We need space now, Angela.
It's nothing personal.
It's just time for everyone to live their own lives. Her voice was so dry it sent a chill down my spine. What are you saying, darling? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Is Nicholas there? Nothing. A few seconds later, the bolt clicked on the other side. I was locked out, my fingers trembling. I walked down the steps without looking back, my feet heavy as blocks of ice. I crossed the street and headed straight for Nicholas's house. Of course, I knew now Nicholas was there, but he didn't come out to show himself.
I rang the doorbell.
Once, twice, 3 times. Finally, the door opened a crack. Nicholas didn't even look surprised to see me. Mom, we don't have room, he said. We've discussed this. It's not healthy for anyone. Not healthy, as if I were mold. With a voice that heralded an approaching storm front, I said I only wanted to stay a few nights while I figured out what to do. But he just glanced behind him, as if asking for permission, then closed the door without another word. I wore my nurse's shoes, the thick-soled ones I'd bought when I still worked at the hospital. They weren't meant for long walks, but that night, I wandered aimlessly. 1 street, 2, I don't know how many. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to that porch. I ended up in the park, the one with the iron benches and the dim lights. A homeless man slept at the other end. I sat down carefully, holding my bag on my lap as if it would protect something. It wasn't particularly cold, but my teeth chattered. Still, I took out the sweet pastry. It was still warm, but I couldn't swallow a bite. Did they really think I'd stay quiet? No, this time I had something more valuable than the pastry deep in my bag. And I wasn't talking about my purse. It was a small black notebook with rounded corners and the word trust embossed in gold on it. Nobody knew, but this notebook held the testimony of something Nicholas and Samantha would never have suspected. I wasn't as alone as they thought, nor as poor. I leaned against the iron backrest, feeling the cold rust against my back, and looked up at the sky. The stars twinkled as if someone up there were lazily waving a flashlight. I whispered softly, Justin, wherever you are, it's time. From the outside, one might say it was a slow tragedy, the years, the exhaustion, and the misunderstandings accumulating like dust on furniture. But when you're in the thick of it, living every day with all your heart, you don't see it coming, even when it's already upon you. I had been a nurse for over 40 years. I gave my all in every shift, even after I was left alone. When my husband passed away, a sudden heart attack while I was doing the dishes, I knew the entire weight of life would fall on my shoulders. I had 2 sons, a broken heart, and 3 shifts a week in the emergency room. Justin was the younger one, always running after Nicholas, trying to catch up. Nicholas was quieter, more serious, even as a child. I said he inherited his father's solemnity, but Justin had that mischievous sparkle that made me laugh even when everything hurt. I raised my sons with the literal sweat of my brow. We didn't have luxuries, but they never lacked a warm meal or a hug. I made magic out of nothing, a roasted chicken on Sundays, cornbread with butter on cold days, oatmeal cookies for Christmas. I read bedtime stories myself, sitting in the rocking chair with a child on each knee. Samantha arrived when Nicholas was 26. He brought her to a 4th of July barbecue. She looked like she stepped out of a magazine, perfect nails, expensive sunglasses, even in the shade.
She kissed my cheek without looking in the eye.
Fool that I was, I put extra meat on the grill to impress her. Mothers-in-law must be wise, I told myself, but what I was generous. Too generous. 3 months later, Nicholas was talking about marriage. 5 months later, We'd lent them money for the down payment on their house. "Just a little push, Mom," he said. I wrote the check with a trembling hand. It was money I'd been saving for my hip, but what's a little pain when it's for your children? No. When Samantha had her first baby, even though she never called to tell me she was in labor, I showed up with a basket full of cloth diapers, natural cream, and a cap I'd knitted myself. They said they were trying a Montessori approach, and that wasn't really in vogue anymore. Still, I offered my help. I moved in with them for a few months so they could sleep soundly. I cooked, washed, cleaned, and stepped aside when Samantha's mother came with her perfect hair and singing voice. I was the one who picked up socks from the floor, who made coffee at 6 a.m. so no one would wake from the noise. And when the baby cried in the middle of the night, I was the one who rocked it back to sleep. Justin. Well, Justin was a different breed. At 18, he had a fierce argument with Nicholas. I didn't know exactly why. Sibling squabble, I thought, but that same night, he left me a note on the table. I don't want to be a burden. I love you, Mom. I'll come back when I can offer you something better. I never heard from him again.
No message, no postcard.
The years passed. I cried silently while I continued to work, while people said I was strong. Strong? What a deceptive word. For Christmas, I was the one who made the gift lists. For birthdays, I baked the cake. On Mother's Day, I sat alone with a cup of tea, waiting for someone to call. And yet, every time Samantha needed help in the garden, I offered myself. When Nicholas said the mortgage was heavy, I sold a piece of jewelry and gave them the money. I called it love. I said, that's what mothers do. But if I'm honest, now that I'm telling you without fear, it was also fear. Fear of being alone, forgotten, of becoming a shadow nobody missed. When I lost my job at the drugstore, I didn't cry about the paycheck. I cried because I knew it was the only thing they seemed to value about me. But there was something else, a secret I hadn't told them.
A story hidden like a treasure.
My old supervisor, Kathleen, a woman with whom I'd shared shifts, tears, and more than one lunch break, left me something in her will. I never mentioned it, not even when Nicholas asked for help with car insurance. It was a trust fund, quiet but strong. I left it untouched, like insurance against being forgotten. And now I began to understand what it was really for. Not for them, but for me. What hurts most isn't the loneliness, but this bitter chasm between who you were to them and what they think of you now. After Justin left and Nicholas married, the house grew quieter. At first, I was grateful for it. I told myself I could finally have some peace, but quiet, honey, when it's not shared, feels a lot like sadness. I started filling my days with small routines. A cup of chamomile tea before bed without exception. The labels on every spice jar arranged in cursive. Wednesdays the market, Fridays banana bread for the neighbor. Small things that don't seem big, but keep the soul tethered to the body. On Nicholas's birthdays, I always left a box on their doorstep, his favorite carrot walnut cake. Sometimes a book I thought he might like. He never said much when he picked it up. Sometimes he didn't even mention it, but I kept bringing it because that's what mothers do. Stubborn in their affection. With Samantha, I tried. I tried too hard. I brought her organic teas, lavender salves, Greek yogurt with homemade granola, things I knew she liked. She never thanked me with words, but she kept them. And that was enough, or so I convinced myself. Sometimes I left small notes, for headaches, for long days, gestures that used to be welcome. In time, she didn't even reply. And Justin, the years passed, and I clung to an illusion. I checked every email, every unknown number. Once I even followed a young man down the street because I thought it was him. He had the same walk, shoulders slightly stooped, long strides, but when he turned around it wasn't his eyes. For Christmas, I sent cards, handwritten in my best script, the one I used for patient reports.
Stern wishing you a year full of love. Thinking of you with all my heart. Stern simple things.
I never got a reply, but I kept sending them. I also left messages on Nicholas's answering machine. Some long, with stories and neighborhood news, others short. I was at the bakery. Did you get your almond cookies? I don't know how much of it was heard. Sometimes the answering machine message sounded the same for weeks, as if it were neither deleted nor listened to. And so my hope grew old, like those plants that slowly wither, but you don't dare throw them away. The strange thing is, I never thought of myself as fragile. I was the strong one, the one who bandaged scraped knees, who knew how to draw blood without the patient noticing. But one day I found myself crying in front of the microwave because the rice had burned, and I understood it wasn't the rice. It was the weight of being alone, of being invisible in a house I had helped build. At the library reading group, someone once asked me if I had grandchildren. I said, yes, but they live far away. It was easier to lie than to explain they lived 10 minutes away and didn't invite me to celebrations. The last time I saw Samantha truly smile was when I gave her a check for Christmas. She said, thanks, without looking up. But that night, I saw a photo on social media. Her and Nicholas, clinking crystal glasses in a fancy restaurant. The caption read, celebrating with our own hard work, as if I hadn't contributed a dime. I bit my lip until it bled. I didn't reply, I never did. I went into the kitchen, opened the cabinet where I kept empty cookie tins, and took out a small velvet box where I stored my most precious things. The hospital medal, Justin's first letter, an old photo of the three of us in front of the Christmas tree. I looked at it for a long time. In that photo, Nicholas hugged me tight around the waist. Justin had crooked teeth, and I wore a red sweater I'd knitted that same week. In that frozen moment, they still loved me, or at least they didn't hide it. That night, I made tea, chamomile as always, but I didn't drink it. I sat in the rocking chair, staring at the steaming cup, and wondered, when did I stop being a mother and become a piece of furniture nobody sees?
You think betrayal comes suddenly, as scream, as slap, as slammed door.
But no, at least not for me. In my case, it was a fine drizzle. Each drop small, almost imperceptible, until one day you're soaked through and don't know when it started raining. I remember the first drop well. It was Samantha's birthday. I had baked her favorite cake, chocolate with orange liqueur. I decorated it with candied almonds I'd bought at a gourmet store because she loved fancy things, Nicholas said. I put on my best slacks, the blue linen ones, and even put on lipstick. But the invitation never came. I found out through an Instagram story. Samantha blowing out candles, surrounded by her family. Her mother, her father, her siblings, everyone but me. In the photo, Nicholas had his arm around his mother-in-law, and she smiled as if she had effortlessly replaced me. No message, no, we kept it small this year. I said nothing. The next time was Easter. Nicholas called at the last minute to cancel the family dinner. He said he was overworked. I had already set the table, the lamb was ready, the mashed potatoes fluffy. I packed everything into glass containers and froze the leftovers in small portions. I told myself it was better this way. They'd get some rest, it was for their health. But 2 days later, Samantha posted photos of a picnic in the park, surrounded by friends and white wine glasses. In one, Nicholas held a champagne bottle, laughing as if he knew no fatigue. Honestly, I didn't know what hurt more, the lie or how casually it was delivered. Then came the money issue. Nicholas and Samantha spoke more and more often of financial adjustments, that they were drowning with the mortgage, that school costs were crazy. I nodded, as if I didn't know exactly how much that private school cost. I had recommended it, after all. One afternoon, Samantha said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "We want to cut expenses, live simpler, as they say today." That same week, I saw they had bought a new stainless steel grill, and Nicholas's car changed models. That's when I started giving them small aids without them asking. That's how our relationship worked. I preempted their rejection. A bank transfer here, a payment there. When the heater broke, I called the technician and paid the bill before they noticed. I put the receipt in their mailbox, wrapped like a gift. They didn't reply. One day, as I was cleaning the mantelpiece in the dining room, I counted the picture frames. 8. 8 family photos. I wasn't in any of them, not even the one from the second baby's baptism. I had spent hours embroidering the white lace dress. I presented it with a blue ribbon that read "With love from your grandma." When I saw it in the photos, they had replaced it with a store-bought one. More modern, Samantha said. Gradually they called rarely, sent cool, sporadic messages. It was no longer "How are you, Mom?" but "Can you pick up the package from the supermarket?" Or "Do you know if the cable bill is due on the 1st or the 15th? And fool that I was, I answered, as if these questions carried hidden affection. The last straw was when Nicholas mentioned they wanted to take a trip. "A dream for years," he said. Samantha had already looked at packages to Greece. They seemed so excited that I was happy for them. So, one night, I opened the box where I kept my few liquid savings, counted bill after bill, and left them an envelope with a note, "For a dream." Nicholas hugged me. Samantha said, "You shouldn't have done that," but they didn't return the envelope. A week later, Samantha commented at dinner, "With prices so high, we have to save wherever we can. Angela, do you really need that cell phone plan with so much data?" I bit the inside of my cheek. It hurt more than if they'd thrown a stone at me. How do you get to a point where your own children treat you like an expense? That night, I went home with a crumpled heart. I opened the black notebook that had been sleeping in my dresser for years. I wrote on an empty page, "Never forget again. Affection is not begged for." I closed it slowly. I made myself chamomile tea, but this time with extra honey. Something in my chest began to harden. That Saturday, I woke up early with a strange longing. My left knee ached, as it always did when it rained, but I felt light. I had decided to surprise them. Not with a check this time, but with something I had made with my hands. I went to the downtown bakery, which already smelled of burnt butter half a block away. I bought their favorites, almond croissants, cheese pastries, and a cinnamon roll just for me. I also bought flowers, jasmine, because Samantha always said she loved natural scents. The sky was cloudy, but that didn't bother me. At home, I knitted until my fingers tingled. Organic cotton baby bibs for Samantha's newborn niece. She wasn't my granddaughter, but she was a baby, and that was enough to love her. I carefully rolled up each pastry, as if packing small pieces of my dignity. Before I left, I looked in the mirror, smoothed my hair, put on my small pearl earrings that I saved for special days. The navy blue sweater I had knitted myself from fine yarn suited me well. I looked like a woman who still had something to offer. The bag was heavy, flowers, pastries, knitted packages, nothing expensive, but all full of intention. I knocked on the door, my heart in my hand. Samantha opened it. She had the phone to her ear and barely looked up. She turned inward without saying anything. I stepped into the hallway, placed the bag on the table, and sat on the sofa. Nicholas appeared later. He didn't hug me, just said, "Everything all right, Mom?" I nodded and offered him one of the pastries. I brought something delicious. I thought we could have coffee together, like old times. Samantha came back in. "We didn't know you were coming today." "It's a surprise," I said, still smiling. "I knitted something for the baby and thought I could help with dinner." Samantha crossed her arms. "We have plans." Nicholas looked away. I nodded, lowering my gaze. I started unpacking the pastries, as if that could change the tone of the afternoon. "No problem. I'll leave them here, maybe for later." Samantha frowned.
Angela, can you give us a moment?
I stood up. Something tightened in my chest. I stayed in the hallway. I heard whispering, then footsteps. Finally, Nicholas came out alone. "Mom, we need to tell you something. It's not comfortable anymore when you're here so often." My lips opened on their own. "Not comfortable?" "Samantha needs space. She's very stressed right now, and well, we feel like you sometimes don't understand boundaries." Boundaries? That word pierced me. But I just wanted to help. "We know that," he said, raising his hands. "But it's too much." Samantha appeared behind him. "We don't want this to turn into a scene. We just need some distance. We can't keep adjusting our visitors." I swallowed, looking at my flowers, my pastries, my lovingly knitted bibs.
"So, what do you want? For me to stay away?"
Neither replied. I slowly picked up my bag, making sure the trembling of my hands wasn't noticeable. I bent down, took the bag with the gifts. I paused for just a moment. "I just came to share something. I thought I was family." Samantha said nothing. Nicholas escorted me to the door, without looking back. As I stood on the threshold, he whispered, "It's better this way, Mom." That sentence echoed in my ribs. I walked home in silence. At the bus stop, an older lady offered me her seat. I thanked her, but didn't sit down. I was so numb I couldn't feel my legs. In my living room, I sat at my sewing table, took out the bibs, and folded them again, one by one. I spoke softly to them, as if they were real babies. It wasn't for you, it was for me, to remind myself that I still know how to care. Then I opened the box with the checks. I had 3 left. I wrote one out. Not for them, for me. It was time to give myself something I'd never had before, self-respect. It was a Wednesday afternoon when everything fell apart. I still remember the crunch of my shoes on the damp pavement, the weight of the bag on my shoulder, and that unpleasant tingling that warns you when something is wrong. I had bought guava pastries for the kids and a hand cream for Samantha, her favorite lemon verbena scent. That day, I felt like something could improve, that tenderness still had a place. I walked up the porch steps, as always, fumbled for my key, but the lock wouldn't turn. I tried once, twice, 3 times, nothing.
I bent down, Peret trug se mel slot.
Everything was fine inside.
Lights on, muted voice.
I knocked on the door. Nothing. I knocked harder. And it was Samantha who answered again, but this time not with silence. "Angela," she said, without opening, "we talked about this. It's not healthy for you to keep coming here. We changed the locks. We need our privacy."
My blodfrotze.
"You changed the locks?" "It's for the best for everyone," Nicholas added from inside, without coming to the door. "We want to avoid further tension."
I klung to the doorknopes if I could turn back time. "And my things?"
"My clothes are in the guest room. We'll send you a box. Don't worry." My heart pounded in my ears. "You're throwing me out." Samantha sighed, annoyed. "It's not throwing out, Angela. It's a transition. We all need space to grow." Transition. What an elegant word for betrayal. I turned silently. I didn't even cry. It was a pain too dry for tears. Like those fires that produce no smoke but leave the earth dead. I thought about going to Nicholas, the older, responsible one, who used to say, "Mommy, come here," when he was sick. But then I remembered what he said at Easter, "Mom, sometimes you're too generous. You can't expect to be everywhere." Still, I went to his house. I rang the bell, waited, rang again.
A shadow moved behind the curtain.
They didn't open. The rain began as I sat on the concrete bench. First a few drops, then a downpour.
I hugged my knees, as I hattes a child wen the wind made my moters haus vistle.
I slept there. I don't know how long. Long enough that my body ached as if a truck had run over me.
I woke up with numb legs, a damp back, and stiff fingers.
I stood up, shook out my skirt, and forced myself not to look back. It was time to leave. I returned to my small rented room, which Nicholas had called too depressing for a grandma. I opened the black notebook, pulled out a copy of Kathleen's will, a considerable sum, neatly transferred into a trust fund under my name, legal, untouched. Until that day, I hadn't touched it. I thought I would save it for them, for their future, for when they needed it. But now I wouldn't even return to their lives with a golden key. I sat on the bed, holding this paper like the only proof that I wasn't crazy. I wasn't a burden, not useless. I was a woman with resources, with a history, and with power. That same day, I called Kathleen's attorney. "I want to talk about transfers, property, independence," I said, my voice firm for the first time in years. That night, I didn't drink chamomile tea. I drank a red wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. And as I slowly drank it, a certainty permeated me like a ray of light. They never saw me, only what was useful to them. Now they would feel what it means to lose what they never appreciated. I woke up early on Thursday. The sun peeked shyly between the rooftops, as shy as I felt inside. I dressed unhurriedly, choosing my favorite blouse, the white linen one, with the mother-of-pearl buttons I had sewn myself. I slipped into my black shoes, the kind that don't pinch when you walk long distances, and I walked down the street with no fixed destination, just with the certainty that I would no longer knock on a door that wasn't opened from the heart. I walked past the bakery. The bread was still steaming in the baskets, but this time I didn't go in. Who would I buy it for? My bag hung lightly, without envelopes, without errands, without obligations to others. As I crossed the town square, I stopped to look at the trees. A swing hung from an old branch. For a moment, I could have sworn I saw Justin on it, laughing with his mouth open. His shoes dirty with earth, my lost boy. I closed my eyes and quietly conjured him. Wherever you are, my son. And then I heard it. Mom. I opened my eyes. No, it wasn't a memory. It was him. Justin stood next to the bench, as tall as I remembered him. But stronger, more masculine. His eyes were moist.
To, Mom. Ikemes fastesi kult.
I froze, as if time had stolen my breath. I said nothing, just reached out my hand, and he took it. We didn't speak. It wasn't necessary. He led me down the street, as he did when he was little, holding my finger so he wouldn't get lost at the fair. We turned a corner, and there it was. An elegant black car. The driver opened the door as if we were royalty. Justin helped me in. His hands were still warm, firm. Where are we going? I finally managed to ask.
Some wäre no von will Eva shoot a door in your face again, Mom.
We arrived at a hotel. Not just any hotel, a 5-star hotel in the city center. One of those I had seen from the outside and thought someday. The lobby smelled of lavender and waxed wood. The walls gleamed as if they had just been born. The receptionist greeted us by name.
Welcome, Ms. Angela.
They gave me a key card and a glass of cucumber water. The suite had a city view, a carpet soft as foam, and a velvet armchair into which I sank, unable to suppress a sigh. Justin sat beside me, pulled a small box from his backpack, and handed it to me. This belongs to you. I opened it. A locket. My locket. The one I had given him for his 18th birthday. I didn't know he still had it. I always carried it with me, he said, as if reading my thoughts. Sometimes I couldn't call you Mom. I was ashamed of what I did, how I left. I thought you were dead, I whispered. No, just lost. We hugged, we cried, but not like before, not from sadness but from relief. After years of silence, we ate together that evening. Risotto, salad with fresh figs, walnut bread. I built a life, he said between bites. It took time, but I have a company. I'm doing well, and I'm here for you. I don't need you to support me, I replied, caressing my wine glass. I know, Mom. You were always stronger than all of us put together. We laughed together, me with already dried tears, him with the firm voice of someone who had returned home. That was the day I stopped begging for love and started receiving it. That night, after a long, wordless embrace with Justin, I remained alone in the suite. I took off my shoes, draped my sweater over the chair, and wrapped myself in the white bathrobe that hung beside the shower. It was soft as a cloud's embrace. I sat on the bed, letting my feet dangle, resting my body on the quilted comforter. On the walls, there were no photos of children who didn't remember me. No reminders of pills or calendars with events that ignored me. Only peace. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had finally stopped chasing those who didn't want to see her. I thought of Nicholas, of Samantha, not with anger, but with clarity. Every scene came together, like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't wanted to assemble. The quiet comments, the closed doors, the favors that became obligations. I remembered the day I co-signed their first loan. I did it without reading, because how could I not trust my son? Years later, when I went to the bank to update my information, the teller looked at me strangely. Nicholas no longer manages your joint accounts. Joint. I discovered that Nicholas, without a word, had added his name to the deed of my house years before. In case something happens, he said when I confronted him, to help you with the mortgage. At the time, I saw it as care. Now I understood it was a maneuver. Samantha had once joked at dinner, I don't know if she'll leave us an inheritance, but at least her cookies. Everyone laughed, even me, to avoid the awkward silence. But it was no joke, never had been. I remembered how they asked me for my health insurance papers, to organize your things, and how afterward documents arrived at my house that they had signed for me. Something smelled fishy, but I didn't want to create tension, because a mother doesn't accuse.
A Mutter weiß, a Mutter justifies.
But I was no longer just a mother, I was a deceived woman. And now, finally, I was a woman opening her eyes. I stood up, walked to the window, and pulled back the curtains.
The city lights twinkled like fallen stars.
There, among those illuminated windows, was the house I had built, the life I had supported, the people I had raised. And on the other side of the glass, I was safe. For the first time in a long time, I allowed myself to cry unhurriedly.
Warm, gentle tears of grief.
Grief for the mother I was, for the one they wanted me to remain, for the one I would never be again. And just before I turned off the light, I swore something to myself. No more ignored pastries.
No more closet doors.
The next time they knock on mine, they'll have to call with respect and with luck. I had breakfast alone, but not lonely.
Crispy toast, strawberry jam, strong coffee.
I served it on the hotel's silver platter, as if I were a guest of honor, because for the first time in my life I was. Afterward, I called the bank. The voice on the other end was friendly, professional. Ms. Angela, how can we help you today? I'd like to check the status of my joint account and my property. There was a pause. Of course, you mean the account with Nicholas Thomas. No, I don't, because I never authorized that connection. I immediately requested a statement. They sent it in less than an hour. I sat at the suite's corner table, opened my old laptop, which Samantha called a toaster, and began to read. There it was, every movement, every transaction. Automatic payments from my account for services that weren't mine, transfers to an account I had never seen. All signed with a signature similar to mine, but hastier. My eyes burned, my teeth buzzed, and just as I thought it couldn't hurt anymore, I saw the clause in the property deed. Nicholas had registered my house as family property with shared ownership. That meant Samantha had rights to it, without a word to me. I wanted to scream, to break something, but instead, I poured myself another cup of coffee and opened a second file, the black notebook. A name was underlined. Maria C., Friday, Trust Attorney. Justin had mentioned her the night before. Trust her, she's my partner and fiercer than an angry mama bear. He winked when he said that. I called her. She picked up on the second ring. A confident, warm voice, but without circumlocution. Angela, so good to hear from you. Justin has told me a lot about you. I told her everything. I didn't cry. I didn't falter. I was a nurse reading a clinical report. Precise, relentless. I dictated dates, numbers, names. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end, then one sentence. This won't stand. We spent the entire morning drafting a plan. Revocation of powers of attorney, freezing of accounts, change of ownership, and something more, something that made me both freeze and seethe. Angela, Maria said. Nicholas tried to take out a second mortgage in your name 6 months ago. It wasn't approved, but he tried. I didn't know whether to laugh or throw up. So much contempt, and they wanted even more. I closed the laptop. I went to the window. I saw the city spread out at my feet. I felt like an empress who had just discovered her castle had been plundered by her own son. But not anymore, not this time. I took my bag, adjusted my sweater, and left the suite. At the reception, I reserved the hotel's private dining room for the next day. Name of the event? The receptionist asked. Family meeting with an unexpected ending. I don't know if you've ever felt that kind of relief that comes with a hint of rage. That strange mix of I'm not alone and now hold on tight. That's how I felt when Maria arrived at the hotel the next day. She entered the private dining room with a firm stride, a briefcase under her arm. No hesitation in her walk. Her hair was swept up, her eyes wide, as if she could smell a lie at the entrance. Justin followed her with that calm smile that always gave me security. Ms. Angela, Maria said, extending her hand. We're going to clear up this mess, and when we're done, they'll know you're not a woman to be trifled with. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, so I just nodded and sat at the table. For 2 hours, We went through every document. Maria spoke quickly, without missing a detail. Justin took notes. I just stared at the papers with a mixture of disbelief and resignation. They showed me how Nicholas had added his name to the house deed when I helped him with the bank paperwork, how Samantha had made purchases in my name, and how they had manipulated the accounts to keep me busy with small debts while they reaped the large benefits. They saw everything as theirs, I said, unable to hold it back, as if I were a fund they could draw from until I ran dry. Justin squeezed my hand. But not anymore, Mom. Maria handed me a folder. Here's the new trust fund. You're the sole direct beneficiary, and Justin is the sole trustee. If anything happens to you, he'll ensure no one else accesses it.
And the house?
I asked. We're selling it, she replied without hesitation. It's already been transferred to the trust fund. Nicholas and Samantha will receive a legal notification within the next 48 hours. If they want to fight, they can do it with attorneys. But no, Angela, they don't stand a chance. I sighed, not from exhaustion, but from relief. For the first time in years, someone was by my side. Not just with soft words, but with firm actions. May I ask you something? I said, looking at both of them. Both nodded. Why now? Justin replied, because I was tired of being away, because I saw you fading from a distance, and because I'm also tired of seeing good people like you swallow their tears while others live off their sacrifice. I placed my hand on my chest, not to soothe the pain, but to protect that warmth that was beginning to grow again. Maria leaned toward me. You don't deserve this. No mother deserves this. But today you begin to get your life back. We left the room with our heads held high, and that afternoon, while I was getting a lavender massage at the hotel spa, I drank cucumber water and smiled, not out of revenge but out of justice. The next morning, I woke up differently. Light, but sharp, like a freshly honed knife that has finally learned it can also cut. I dressed slowly. White linen blouse, the locket on my chest, gleaming in the sunlight streaming through the window. I opened it and touched the old photo of Justin. 8 years old, his face covered in chocolate. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. Justin and Maria were waiting for me downstairs. Ready to finish what we started? She asked with a firm smile. More than ready, I said, and my voice sounded like a promise. First, we went to the attorney's office. I signed the papers formalizing the transfer of my assets into the trust fund. The house, the accounts, even the savings account I'd had since Nicholas was a child. All legally secured, out of reach of those who saw me only as a walking ATM. With this, Maria said, any attempt by them to lay a finger on your property is blocked. And if they try, they will face legal action. Afterward, we went to the bank. I closed the joint account with Nicholas. I opened a new one just for me, with a password not even Justin knew.
Ten came the part where my hands trembled.
Writing the notification. In clear, steady handwriting, I wrote, asterisk as of today, I am no longer your support. Love is not a service, loyalty is not slavery, and motherhood is not possession. Nicholas, I have transferred the house to a trust fund beyond your reach. Samantha, you no longer have access to my accounts. The door you closed will not open again from my side. Good luck with the mortgage. Angela. Asterisk Maria nodded, satisfied.
Believe me, Ivy sehen softer divorces tan this letter.
Justin scanned it and printed it on letterhead. We sent it with a return receipt. They'll get it tomorrow. As we left the office, the sun was high and clear, as if it knew what we had just done. I felt invincible. No, I felt free. That afternoon, Justin and I went to the house one last time to collect my belongings. The garden looked the same as always, but something was different, as if the air itself no longer belonged to me.
Samantha wasn't Tiere.
Nicholas opened the door, looking confused. He wore a t-shirt stained with tomato sauce, his brow furrowed. Mom, what are you doing here? I'm getting my things. Why didn't you let us know? I handed him a copy of the letter without a word. He read it. At first, he said nothing, then his jaw dropped. You're selling the house? It's already in process. In process?
This is crazy.
Who put these ideas in your head? My own mind, and an excellent attorney. I went into the guest room.
I pakket in Silengse.
Books, photos, my knitting needles, the bathrobe my husband wore when he watered the plants. Justin helped me with the rest. As we left, Nicholas still stood in the doorway, the paper crumpled in his hands. Mom, please, can we talk? You had years to talk. All you did was silence me. And then I left, without drama, without shouting, with a dignity that hurt them more than any accusation. That night, I painted my nails. Wine red, because if I was starting a new life, I would do it with style. The messages came the next day. First a missed call, then 2 more, then a flood. Nicholas, Mom, please, I don't understand this.
Can we talk?
Samantha is very upset. She says this was cruel.
Please don't lie us like this.
I read every word with a calm that surprised even myself. It was like watching a fire through thick glass. The flames were there, but they no longer reached me. That afternoon, while I was getting a lavender massage at the hotel spa, my phone vibrated incessantly on the bedside table. I didn't touch it, I didn't move. The therapist said, "Breathe deeply, Ms. Angela. It's okay to let it all out." And I did. I exhaled until I felt my chest finally free of guilt.
In the evening, Samantha changet tactics.
I received an email with 6 paragraphs titled, Reflection from the Pain. She wrote, "You loved me," he was confused. Maybe I felt pushed aside, but they never meant to hurt me. Between the lines, the true fear shimmered. We didn't know you changed the legal papers. It's irreversible. We could talk to a mediator if that makes you feel better. I didn't reply. That night, I ate alone in the hotel restaurant with a glass of white wine and a view of the city, which glowed like a Christmas tree. The waiter brought me an exquisite dish. Trout on cauliflower puree. With every bite, I felt more like the mistress of my own life. On the 3rd day, Nicholas came to the hotel. He called from the reception. The young woman at the front desk discreetly informed me. "Ms. Angela, your son is here. He says he urgently needs to see you." "I don't have an appointment with him," I said, without raising my voice. "If he insists, ask him to leave his message in writing." The receptionist nodded and typed something into her computer. A few minutes later, the phone in my suite rang. It was her again. "Mr. Nicholas has been informed. He says he'll wait in the lobby." "He shouldn't wait too long," I said, and hung up. I took a sheet from the hotel notepad. With black ink and a compulse, I wrote, "I gave you everything.
You only gave a closet door in return.
Good luck. Angela." I put it in an envelope. I rode the elevator down, walked to the counter, placed it on the marble, and looked toward the end of the lobby. There he was, sitting there, elbows on his knees, gaze fixed on the floor, like a scolded child. I didn't go to him, I just turned and went back up. In the suite, I prepared a bubble bath with eucalyptus salts. Outside, the world was falling apart. Inside, I was being reborn, and that night, I slept like a child. The hotel had a tea lounge on the mezzanine, thick carpets, porcelain cups, and natural light that fell like honey on the white tablecloths. I sat there, reading a mystery novel, when I heard the soft chime of the elevator and the nervous murmuring of the receptionist. I looked out of the corner of my eye. Samantha, expensive heels, her handbag on her arm, that tight hairstyle that always reminded me of an ice sculpture. Behind her, Nicholas, head bowed, dark circles under his eyes. The young hotel employee gently stopped her. "Excuse me, do you have an appointment with Ms. Angela?" Samantha spoke without looking at him. "I'm her daughter-in-law. I don't need an appointment." I stood up before it became a spectacle.
I walked to the counter.
I looked directly at them, without pretense. "Don't expect to come in. Not today." Nicholas swallowed. "Mom, please."
Samantha lauket DRYLY.
"Seriously, do you want to make a public scene out of this? And when was the contempt ever private?" I asked.
Samantha presset her lips toget her.
"Do you think you're winning, that this revenge makes you strong?" I leaned forward as if sharing a secret. Darling, this isn't revenge. This is an accounting. I handed the receptionist a white card with my name in cursive and a handwritten line. Asterisk, all future communication is to be directed to the trust attorney. Thank you. Asterisk, Nicholas took a step forward. You can't just erase us like this. I'm not erasing you, I replied, without raising my voice. You faded on your own. I'm just taking notes. I turned, walked back to my table, and resumed my book. The last image I have of them is Samantha pulling Nicholas by the arm, saying, "Leave her, she's probably just disoriented." But now, at least, I was disoriented in my own favor. After they left, I ordered another cup of tea. Chamomile, as always. I took a piece of vanilla cake with it, the kind of thing I used to save to share. But now I enjoyed it alone, and I lacked nothing. Because saying no is also a form of love, self-love.